Hi, and welcome to the Radio.co professional audio production tips for broadcasters. Today, we're going to take you through a presentation sharing our tips with you on how to get the best out of your audio. We're also going to give you a little demonstration, and we're going to give you the opportunity to ask us some questions at the end.
Yeah, so without further ado, I guess we're going to get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is how you guys should be looking at choosing a microphone. Now, there is a lot of debate about this on the internet, but we tend to say it's purely up to personal preference. That can go for what kind of setup you want, how confident you are with technical setups, etc. So we're going to show you two different types of microphone and just kind of give you the basic rundown of the differences between the two. So do you want to do condenser?
Absolutely. So condenser microphone is in fact what we're using right now. They are durable, they're pretty simple to use, so they're very good if you're doing this for the first time, or if you're a bit, I'm not sure about technology. They are probably one of the easier ones to use. Very clear audio. They're also good if you've got inexperienced guests in with you, so if they're not sure on mic technique, they're usually pretty good for whoever you've got in, however, whatever level that they are. It does require phantom power. Not all condensers do, but the vast majority do, which means that you've got to make sure you run it through a desk or a phantom power box into your computer. Do you want to go on about dynamic microphones?
Sure, yeah. So most dynamic microphones are a USB connection, making them a lot easier to set up, which means they're pretty beginner friendly. It does mean that you can bypass the mixer altogether if you wanted to and just have the dynamic microphone running straight into a computer or a laptop. Also, as a result of that, most of them don't require phantom power as well. So again, meaning you don't have to have a middleman. You can just run it directly from the mic to the computer or the laptop. And a lot of them usually have some sort of built-in noise cancellation or any other built-in features. They usually have quite a few of those. Usually they have built-in shock mounts as well.
Always a bonus. The thing about condenser microphones as well is you can often, on a lot of models, not all of them, but a lot, they have a little pickup selector. So condenser microphones tend to pick up in a cardioid pickup pattern, which is like a love heart. We all love a bit of love. So that means that when you're speaking into the microphone, it's picking up this way. Whereas you never know, you might want to pick up from over here or a bit over here. Whatever works for you, often you can switch that so that it picks up, well, your preference, really.
Yeah. And another quick point to mention as well is a lot of condenser microphones tend to be more on the expensive side because of how durable they are, and generally the audio quality is usually a little bit better with condensers as well. So they do tend to be a little bit more on the pricier side. So if you're looking for something more budget friendly, probably recommend looking at a dynamic microphone.
Absolutely.
So moving on from that, we're going to go over a couple of basic setups to do with each of these mics because the setups are different. Now, we're not going to be able to go through every specific setup in existence because there's far too many for us to even try and go through all of them today. So we're just going to give you a brief overview of a dynamic microphone setup and a condenser microphone setup. So with a dynamic microphone, as I said before, you can route it into a mixer or audio interface and then into your computer, or you can pretty much do it a pretty simple way and just route the microphone directly into your computer and then perhaps use like a mixer software on your computer to bypass the mixer element. This does make it a little bit more portable as well. So if you wanted to do like a radio broadcast on the go, then dynamic setup is probably a little bit easier to transport.
Yeah, and a lot of professional radio outlets do use the dynamic for on the go, so it's absolutely foolproof. For the condenser microphone, it is a little bit different because, as I said before, a lot of them do use phantom power, so you will require phantom power to actually operate the microphone. Now, the vast majority of sound desks have phantom power built in. It's a little button that you can switch on. Most have it, but some don't, so you can get a little adapter, like a little box that's 48 volts, and it just plugs into your microphone on one end and your sound desk in the other. At the end of that, of course, you've got your computer, your laptop with your editing software of choice.
Yep. So a little bit more on that. We're going to look at how you can get the best quality audio through a few different things. Now, obviously, having a decent microphone will help greatly in achieving good quality audio, but there are a few other things that you can do to make it sound that little bit better. So I'm going to let Laura talk on a topic that she loves a lot.
I do. I love pops and plosives. Not love pops and plosives. I love talking about them because I do hate pops and plosives with a passion. That's the point, really. So pops and plosives, for those people who don't know, it's usually when you say the letters like P, T, like P, T, K, they're quite harsh because you expel a lot of air when you're saying them. When you speak into a microphone, often it changes the pressure around the microphone, and therefore the microphone doesn't know what to do, and it creates a pop sound in your audio, and it doesn't sound good. It's very not good, in fact. So there's quite a few things that you can do. It totally depends, but a lot of it is picking the right microphone, because obviously if you use specific microphones in specific places, for instance, if you're working outside where it's windy and you don't have the correct microphone, you'll definitely get a lot of that noise that you don't want. And as I said before, the correct pickup patterns. If you've got a pickup pattern selector on your microphone, the best one, whatever you think will do that the least. My second favourite thing that I love doing, which is going to annoy you a bit because it's going to ruin the audio a slight bit, but little thing called windshields. So when I'm putting this on, it'll make a noise. I apologise. There we go. Yes. So putting a windshield on your microphone is good because, especially for broadcasters, might not be quite as microphone savvy if you've got guests on or whatever. It just puts a little barrier between the microphone and your voice so that you're not creating those horrible pop sounds. What you can also do is you can get a pop shield if for some reason you're very shouty, very spitty. You can put a pop shield on as well so that it just dampens the sound a little bit more.
Yeah. So another thing you can do that's pretty well known is spacing from the microphone is pretty important, because if you're really up close to the microphone, your levels are most likely going to peak. And that will make the audio clip. And essentially what that means is it'll just, when you're listening back to it, it will either make like a horrible like beep sound or a grating sound, or it's not a very nice sound. It's not something you want in your radio shows. So the easiest way to bypass that, if you don't have a muffler or a shield, or even if you do, is to spread your hand like this and then sort of keep that distance away from the microphone as a rough guide. As long as you stay that distance away, it should turn out pretty okay.
Another thing to add is to have the microphone just slightly above your mouth, because when you create those sounds, those p-ts, k's, you'll notice that you actually push the air downwards. So if the microphone's slightly above, then it's not getting that horrible air noise that we don't want in our recordings. And then soundproofing. I'll let Laura talk about soundproofing because she's good at this.
Yeah, well, we are going to come back to soundproofing a little bit later on. But the basic gist of it is soundproofing is good. Please use some. You can do this by having a carpet on your floor. If you don't have a carpet, you can quite easily get a rug or some carpet tiles to pop down on your floor. There is acoustic foam. I appreciate not everybody will want to go out and get acoustic foam and stick it to the walls of their house. But it is an available option, and there are a few different options as well that we'll be talking about a little bit later on as well. So this section, we're just kind of going to run over a brief glimpse of a few different studio setups that we've seen a few different people have. So the most common one that we usually deal with is the home studio or the bedroom DJ. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to this one. So this is when you're broadcasting out of a room in your house, a bedroom usually. So the easiest way of soundproofing that environment would be through having a carpet floor. If you have a hardwood floor and you're not willing to like tear that up and have another one put in, big job, I appreciate. Again, carpet tiles are available to go and get from Amazon, different stores, or get a big rug and pop that down. Curtains can help as well, basically any soft furnishing. We're actually using a big thick blackout curtain right here. Actually, I think it's a stage curtain, that one. But some nice thick curtains, usually blackout, will help to cushion the sound a little bit, make it sound a little bit less echoey. Blankets on walls is an unusual one, but it's something that we have seen pictures of on the internet, people using blankets on the walls of their room to try and reduce the hard surfaces of their walls. And also some people go as far as taping cushions into the corners of their room. A strange one, I appreciate, but it can help to reduce the amount of echo in a room as well.
Funnily enough, when I was in college, there was a boy in the year above me who, when we were doing music technology, he was so focused on getting a good grade that he actually brought his duvet in from home and put it up in the studio so that it would have the right acoustics in the studio for him to record, which was well above and beyond, but it works, which I think, and I think he got an A star, so
that's great.
It proves it works, and these home techniques are actually quite good. Don't be afraid to botch things up, just go for it. I'll take you through the office studio. Office studio is what you probably see most professional setups in, radio stations, that kind of things. So they tend to have acoustic foam on the walls, which is what we've got behind us here. When you've got an office, it's usually fine to do that. Obviously, when you're at home, you might not want to. That's completely up to you. Carpets, again, soft floorings, they really do help. Just reducing hard surfaces in general, because your voice bounces off everything, or whatever noise you're making, whatever you're recording, just bounces off everything. We've all been there where we've moved into a new house and there's nothing in it, and you go in and it's like, hello, hello, hello. That is what we're trying to avoid in this situation. And curtains, if you've got windows, whatever, curtains really do the trick.
Yeah. And then the final option that we've sort of decided to show you is a more expensive option, but it can help, especially with some companies, I would assume. So we actually have one of these. It's a little recording booth. And what these are is usually a relatively small enclosed space. They usually have acoustic foaming all around the inside of it. Sometimes they'll have additional corner acoustic foam, which is the same effect as the cushions I was mentioning in the corners of the bedroom studio. Same effect. And they will have carpet on the floor. Basically, they are a pretty good soundproofed environment for you to record in.
Just to add as well, they're really good because they're very compact, so if you haven't got a lot of space, they're good to put in small spaces. And especially if you work in an office environment or something and you want somewhere quiet that's still within the office where the noise is, they're great because you just step through one door and you're still in the same room technically, but all the noise has gone from outside.
Which is great.
What you need.
So the next bit is actually recording your show. So there's a few things you can do to try and get better sounding audio out of your shows during recording your show or before recording your show even. So the first one of those I've pulled up is doing a warm-up. A lot of people don't do this, and I really think it's an important step before you do anything.
You're theatrically trained though, so...
I am a little bit, but anything broadcasting or like public speaking wise, you should probably do a warm up beforehand just to get your voice used to speaking and make sure you don't stumble over your words as much as I'm doing. So the one that I've pulled up, and we can both give this a go if you want.
Oh, I'd love to.
I fumbled it earlier, so we'll see if this actually goes through okay. So it's a proper cup of coffee from a proper copper coffee pot.
Yeah, we did well there.
And we both nailed it.
Look at that. Professional. So yeah, if you just do that kind of thing, there's lots of tongue twisters, I'm sure you've heard many. Whichever's your favourite, just go for it, go mad. Another technique also that is definitely important that people forget about is breathing. So both before and after, breathing techniques, in, out, you get the gist, Everyone's breathed before, or I'd like to think they have at least. So yeah, breathing out. It actually is really good to get your breathing going well because, as I said before about the plosive sound, if you are struggling for breath, you'll actually make more of those sounds and harshness of sort of breathy noises. So it's good to get breathing. But also another thing with recordings, especially podcast, radio broadcasts, where people don't have the aid of a visual aid to actually look at you, because funnily enough, a lot of understanding what somebody's saying is also seeing their mouth moving, which obviously that element is removed. So a good thing to do is to slow it down, because it gives that little bit of extra time for the brain to process what's being said, and it just helps everybody out in general. Do you want to talk about some mic techniques and some recording levels?
Well, we pretty much mentioned mic techniques earlier, actually. So it's just all those things we mentioned before of making sure the microphone is slightly above so you don't breathe into it when you're making any of those harsher sounds, watching for plosives in general, keeping a decent distance away from the microphone, all that good stuff. And then setting recording levels is one thing that I see a lot. I used to do a lot of editing during my time at university, and this was a pretty common problem we used to see a lot, is people not setting recording levels before they start broadcasting or they start recording. Usually for voices, you're aiming for them to be around minus 12 decibels, minus 9 decibels, somewhere in that zone. If you're a little bit above or a little bit below that, it's not particularly important. You will be able to correct it in edit, but there's only so much you can do in post, and obviously if it's a live broadcast, you're not going to get a chance to do post because it's live. So setting recording levels is incredibly important.
To further add, if your audio is distorting, there is no way to get that back, even in edit. So it's fine to be loud, but make sure you turn down as well.
Yes.
And another thing, is before you start, people tend to set levels. And professional broadcasters or people who've been doing it a lot know, what their level kind of is. But when they have guests on, they'll go, oh, we need to do a mic check, and the guest will go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they'll set the level to that, thinking that's how they're going to speak. And then all of a sudden the broadcast starts and they're full of confidence and they're shouting and they're loud, and all of a sudden, whoa, it's up. So you're might have to, ride the fader a bit, make sure you get them levels, keep your headphones on, make sure it's all going right at all times.
It's a really good point, actually, that I didn't think of, keeping headphones on when you're monitoring audio, because you never know when it's going to change or when something might disrupt. So it's a good idea to keep monitoring it at all times and keep an eye on it. So now we're just going to run over a few little handy Radio.co tips for making your audio sound better or making your shows sound or appear a little bit better. So one common thing that gets brought up a lot with our support team is how you can shuffle a playlist, because not everybody wants to have the same playlist of the same songs looping all the time. So the easiest way to do that is in Radio.co you can apply tags to tracks. And what that means is if you apply a tag, say the tag pop, to a few different songs, and then you made a playlist of here's a pop song and then a rock song and a rock song and another pop song, what Radio.co will do is, instead of pulling individual tracks and the same ones, it will pull a random track from your media library with that tag attached, meaning that every time the playlist loops, it will be different songs that get pulled out. So that's the easiest way to shuffle a playlist without having a shuffle button. Then we have a brand new feature that we've recently introduced, which is our talks feature. I know a lot of people are very excited about this one coming into existence. So this is a feature that we've introduced, and it's a way to bypass having to fiddle around with Skype for live calls, having to fiddle around with trying to route a phone into a mixer. It makes it a lot easier. So how it works is, you as the host will have a link. You then send that out to up to 4 people to join you. And then when the show is scheduled to start, they can click the link and come join you. You can mute or activate their microphones as you wish. You can record for up to an hour in this feature, and it is only for pre-recorded shows. This feature you can't currently use for live shows. But it's a great feature, and I think it'll actually help a lot of people out with creating those talk shows where it would have been a pain to try and route phones into a mixer beforehand. And then the final one is we have recently introduced our Pro plan. This is particularly interesting for those who are looking for a very clean, pristine streaming quality. We have 320 kilobytes per second streaming on that. So it makes your audio sound a lot clearer, a lot nicer, and just a lot more professional in general. So you can have a look at the Pro plan. We have an article on our blog right at the top. And also, if you go to our pricing page, radio.co/pricing, all the information is in a neat little table right there of the features you get with the Pro plan. And so now we're going to go into a quick workshop on how to edit your radio shows using Adobe Audition. Hi everyone, welcome to this Adobe Audition editing workshop. So I'm going to give you a quick breakdown on everything you need to know about working with Adobe Audition. Adobe Audition is a paid editing program, but in my opinion, it's one of the better ones that you can use. So here we go. So when you first open Adobe Audition, this is pretty much what it'll look like. So there's a few different areas I'm going to explain really quick, and then we'll get into how you can actually edit using Adobe Audition. So the first area I want to show you guys is this big, very obvious area. So this is where your waveform files will show up in a waveform. And this is sort of where you'll do a lot of your editing, a lot of your fine adjustments. Then over here we have probably another very important area. This is where you will upload your media to. So I will get into a couple of different ways you can upload media to Adobe Audition, but this is where all your files will be listed for you to edit, for you to click and drag into the multitrack area, which I'll explain later, and various other things. Now up here you have a few editing tools, but these are all grayed out at the moment because we don't have any files actually uploaded into Audition yet. But when we get some files uploaded, I'll run over these very briefly. And finally, sort of down here at the bottom, we have our levels. Now this will show you how loud or how quiet your audio files are. So this is something you'll want to keep an eye on. A lot of stuff with levels can be fixed, so don't be too concerned if you do look at this at any point and think, wow, that's pretty low, or wow, that's very high. We can usually correct that. So first of all, we need to put some actual files into Audition. And there's a couple of different ways you can do that. So the first and probably most obvious way of uploading media is to click this little file button right here, and then select the media that you want to upload, and then click Open Media. And this will import your files into the media area. Another way you can do this is simply by clicking and dragging your files from your File Explorer or Finder if you're using a Mac right into the upload area. And another way that you can do it, which is probably the way that I usually use the most, is if you right click and then select Import Media, select what you want to upload and then upload it. And that's probably the way that I use the most, to be honest. So while we're in the waveform editor, I guess I'll just run over the basics of what you need to know in this area. So in the waveform editor, it's pretty easy to remove silence from the beginning and end of your tracks. Sometimes you will start recording, particularly with voices, you'll start recording and then leave a little gap at the beginning just to make sure the microphone has started up properly and everything's running okay, and then you start talking. So to get rid of this silence at the beginning of the track, what we do is we can highlight the part of the track we want to get rid of, so first by clicking and dragging like that. And then if you hit delete on your keyboard, there it goes. Now this is a very basic way of deleting silences or ums and ahs that you don't really want in tracks. However, this is not recommended for if you're trying to remove something in the middle of a sentence. And the reason I say that is because it automatically stitches the two ends of the audio either side together. So if you remove something in the middle of a sentence, it's going to stitch whatever is either side of that sound together. meaning your sentence will either sound unnatural because you're not breathing in the sentence correctly, or it will just sound really strange because you will have cut half a word off. It's probably better to use this method of deletion at the beginning or the end of your track. Another thing you can do in Waveform Editor is you can adjust your levels. Now remember I said before about sometimes you might look at a track and think, oh, that's a bit quiet. Typically, voices tend to need at least a 3 decibel boost. So the way we do that is by going up to this dial right here. This is your gain dial. So by clicking and dragging this dial up or down, you can increase or decrease the gain, making your track louder or quieter, depending. So we're going to boost this track by about 3 decibels, maybe a little bit lower. And there we go. Now, I could sit here and go through all the things you can do with Waveform Editor, but a lot of them are going to be up here in the Effects drop-down menu. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot of these, so I'm not going to sit here and go through every single one. Oh, we would be here forever, and this is only a short little live stream. However, in here you have things like EQ. EQ is pretty good for getting rid of any pop sounds, any plosives, any harsh sounding sounds, vibrations, things like that tend to really great on radio presenters. All the stuff you want to get rid of. Usually you can remove small background sounds using EQ. So the next and final area I'm going to show you guys is the Multitrack Editor. This is probably where you're going to be doing the bulk of your editing. So if we go up to Multitrack Editor right here at the top and just type in a name, there we go. So this area you can see is made up of a lot of different tracks. They're all numbered. You can change the names of these to suit whatever you want to put on the tracks, but if you just click and drag your audio files into the tracks, they will show up. And this is how you can rearrange your tracks to play out in the order that you want them to. So we're going to drop a voice file right here. This is a little interview. And we're going to drop a bit of music for a jingle and a sound effect right here. So the things you can do in the Multitrack Editor, you might notice that our lovely effects buttons that were grayed out before are all back in play again. So the one you'll probably be using the most is this one. It's the razor tool, and this is how you're going to get rid of any ums, any ahs, any nasty sounds that you don't want, or any bits of audio you think don't add any quality to what you're trying to put across. So let's just say that this little blip here is an that I want to get rid of. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our little razor tool, and we're going to make a cut at the beginning and just behind the and then select the little that we want to get rid of and press delete, and there it goes. What you can do, just as a quick little thing if you're trying to edit pretty quickly, is you can then right click on the empty gap where we just had the and then if you select ripple delete and gap, and that just automatically brings those two ends of audio together. If you want to put a bit more time into it and actually adjust the silence to sound sort of right, feel free, but that's just a quick way of closing up that little gap. So let's say you wanted to make a bit of a finer adjustment, say you'd said right at the beginning of a sentence before you'd started a sentence, and it's a little bit hard to pick it up from this distance. What you can do is go to your little scroll bar at the top here, and if you click and drag either end in, it will zoom into your waveform, making it a lot easier to make any finer adjustments you may need to make. So the last thing I'm going to show you guys is these two lines that you may have noticed on each of the tracks. So these control two different elements of these tracks. So this first one here is the volume line, and this is what dictates how loud and how quiet your tracks are going to play out. So if we look at our music track here, what I want this to do is start very quietly underneath the end of me talking, and then come up to be normal volume just as I finish talking, and then go back down again underneath and fade out over the next bit of audio. So how do we do that? Well, we use these things called keyframes. So if you click on that line here and here, these little dots are called keyframes, and you can think of them like pins. So they are going to pin this line in place exactly where we want it. So I'm going to click and drag this pin down, and that pin's going to stay there. And then what this does is the volume of this music track now will follow this line. So it's going to start off quiet here, and then follow it along, still quiet underneath me, and then get up to normal volume just as I finish talking. And then we're going to do the same on the end. Fantastic. So now that means that it's going to be ducked under me talking, and it's going to come up to normal volume, play out as a jingle, and then go back down underneath me talking again. The other line that is on these tracks is called the pan line. This one's slightly whiter than the other one, and what this does is it can make the track play out on the left or the right. So if you're wearing headphones, and if you move this track, say, to the left, if you're wearing headphones, it'll now play out on the left. So if I was to move this line all the way down, it would now play out in the right. Now this is pretty useful for if you wanted to create a stereo field, if you want your listener to sound like they're sitting in the middle of an interview, for example, or if you just want to be a bit fancy with it. So what we're going to do to finish up this workshop is we're going to pop together a quick little interview piece. So I've got my voices here, I've got my music here, and I've got my sound effect here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pan some of the interview so that one person speaks on the left, one person speaks on the right. We're going to duck this music underneath the speaking, and it's going to be a rough but ready interview piece. So this is me talking for the intro. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little cut there because I don't want to carry on talking. I want the jingle to come in right there. So we're going to cut, and we're going to move that one across so it's not playing directly afterwards. So then with this music, we're going to put in 2 little keyframes, one here and one here, and then we're going to drag this first one down, and that's going to duck the music underneath me speaking and come up to normal volume just as I finish speaking. There we go. And then on the side, we're going to do exactly the same, 2 keyframes, and we're going to duck this one down. So now that is ducked. And then this is the interview. So it starts off with me talking. So I'm going to put myself on the left. And then right about here is where the other person starts talking. So I'm just going to knock that down to the right. And then I'm going to knock it back up again here because that's when I start talking. And if I was editing the whole interview, this would carry on and on and on. As we switch between the 2 people talking, but I'm only doing a little segment for you guys. So this is roughly what an interview segment would look like for a radio show. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out. Hopefully you learned something from this. If you want any more information on how to edit in Adobe Audition, if you have any further questions about this or anything else radio related, feel free to send us an email at studio@radio.co. And now it's back to us for a quick Q&A. So I hope that helped some of you guys out. Sorry about the pause there. Hope that helped some of you guys out with editing in Adobe Audition. As I said in the video, it is a paid software. So if you are looking for some free alternatives, we do have a blog post about that on our blog. So you can pretty much just search that up as well. So now we're going to answer a few questions that we've got in from you guys during the live stream. So the first one we have is from Daisy, and it says, for newcomers like me, what simple audio software would you recommend for editing my radio shows?
Audacity. I think it's free, it's very simple to use. There's lots of tutorials online, so if you're stuck, there's lots of info. We've wrote things about it on our blog posts, so have a look there. If you do want to upgrade to paid at some point, Audition's also very good, but Audacity is definitely the simplest and cheapest because it's free.
Yeah, pretty much. So then we have a question from Kathy, and it is, our radio station uses a lot of pre-recorded mobile journalism content using smartphone mics, portable recorders, but the audio we get from these devices is quiet in comparison to the music tracks on cloud. If we increase the gain or volume, the content gets distorted. It's either too quiet, distorted, and very hard to find a balance in the middle. Do you have any tips for this? Obviously, we can't offer specific advice on specific products because we don't have those products here in order to try and test it out and duplicate what you're experiencing. So the best bet if you're having errors with any equipment is to talk to the original manufacturers about that. But what I would say is just make sure that you could maybe check a few reviews online and see if people are experiencing similar issues, if it's a common problem with the products that you've got, in which case it might be an idea to look at upgrading to something else. So the next one we have is, and I've just scrolled way too far down the questions. There we go. How many people can I talk to using the new talk feature, from David? So the answer to that is 4, I believe. We do actually have a little bit of a video that we can show you guys all about the new talk feature.
Hi, Jamie here from Radio.co. Today we're going to be looking at an exciting new feature that allows you to record talk shows with guests from different locations. Not everybody has the option of being in the same room when presenting shows together. Whether you have a co-host out of town or a guest in another country, you can now record your radio shows from different places using Radio.co. Please be aware that this feature is only available on the Gold plan or higher. You can upgrade your plan in your Radio.co dashboard, settings, billing and change plan area. Get started by creating a new talk show in your dashboard under Media, Talk Shows, then create a new talk show. Enter your show's details such as the artwork, title and artist. This will be used as the show's track information once you've finished. When it's been created, the new talk show will appear under the Pending Talks. Copy the visitor URL and invite up to 4 guests to your talk show. As you haven't started your session just yet, guests will see a screen stating that the show is currently off the air. Start your talk show to let guests connect by clicking the Start Session button. Within the talk show session window, choose your recording device like an external microphone or an audio interface. You can also see the status of your guests and who's connected or attempting to connect. From your guest point of view, once the session is ready, they can enter their name, choose an input device and agree to the privacy policy. When they've entered their details, they can call the station, at which point you can connect the call. If you don't connect with the guest within 15 seconds, it gets automatically disconnected, but the guest can try again by calling the station. Please be aware that you won't be able to hear the guest as they are muted by default, but you can control this within your dashboard. When a guest starts calling, answer by clicking the phone button. Once your guests are connected, they should see a list of other participants and have an option to leave the call once everything gets wrapped up. When everyone is connected, start the show by clicking the record button. Shows can be a maximum of 1 hour long as indicated by the countdown timer. When your show is finished, click the stop button. Preview the audio back to make sure everything sounds as it should. Your guests will still be connected, so you can either re-record the audio or if it's all good, then bid them farewell. Once you're happy with your recorded show, click the save button. The audio may take a few minutes to process, but once it's complete, it will appear under the completed talks area in your dashboard. Now you can schedule your recorded show just like any other track. In the playlist editor under Talk Shows, view and add your recordings, then schedule them to play out on your station. Hope you enjoyed this brief walkthrough, but if you have any questions about the talk show feature or need a hand, then get in touch with us at studio@radio.co. Or if you're not with us just yet and want to record your shows from different locations, then start your station with a 7-day free trial.
Cool. So I hope that helped some of you guys out as well with understanding a bit more about our talk feature. So then we have a question from Matt, and he says, what does Radio.co offer in terms of audio editing? So we have a couple of things that we offer with Radio.co. We have a track editor where you can adjust the in and out points of a track and the fade in and out of a track as well. So say the track starts with some silence that you want to get rid of, you can get that off with using the track editor feature. We also offer volume normalization as well, just to help out a little bit further with that. Next up, we have a question from Andy. He says, I'm a DJ and use I can never say this program. Serato. I'm getting the thumbs up on Serato. On my laptop with a Pioneer S9 mixer. What's the best mixer to use for broadcasting and taking phone calls without having to adjust individual devices? So with every mixer, you are going to have to adjust individual channels. There's not really much getting away from that problem. For best mixers, though, we do actually have a blog post on that. So if you go to the Radio.co blog, radio.co/blog, and if you type in best broadcasting desks, we do actually have a full blog post on some lovely mixers, and I'm sure one of those will be able to suit your needs just fine.
Our next question is from Alicia, and that is, what are the common recording mistakes you see and how do I avoid them? I think I mentioned it before. When the volume is clipping, it has said, you can bring things down if it's a bit too loud, you can pull things up if it's too quiet, but if it distorts, you've lost the audio. And again, pops, plosives, those wind noises from outside, if you're doing outside broadcasts, rumble noises even. So sometimes in places when there's buses going past, you get vibrations and stuff in your recording.
Like here. We heard a bus goes past right then, so but we're well equipped for it, so we do try.
But yeah, those are kind of recording mistakes that can be avoided, and you just got to make sure your setup is good enough, make sure you've got the right soundproofing, right microphones, and you should avoid all of that straight away.
Yeah. So from Hans, we have some Jingle Voices sound really powerful, while others sound like a transistor radio from 1965. It's a good way of putting it. I've tried tutorials on YouTube, but I can't get the result I want. What can I do to get really good sounding audio? One trick that I like using for making audio sound a little bit better, especially if you can put it through in post if it's a pre-recorded item, is by putting a quick processor on it. There are tutorials on how to do that online, but usually that makes it sound pretty good.
I think Hans will definitely appreciate the t-shirt that I decided to wear today.
Oh, appropriate.
I hope he thinks that is, one of it. It's probably not him. I don't know. If that's your face, that's just a coincidence. But it is super Hans from Peep Show, so probably not you. Number 8. What is the best editing tool you've used the most? This is from Jeffrey. Audition. All day long. Adobe Audition is excellent. It's got everything that you want in there. It's very easy to use. You can even get programs outside of Audition that you can actually put into Audition. So if there's certain things that you notice in the audio that you don't like, there's programs that you can actually use with Audition that'll get rid of them. For instance, there's a program called Isotope, which can get rid of sort of breath noises, wind noises that have been really difficult to get rid of in editing. So you can do anything with Audition. The possibilities are endless.
Very true. So then we have a question from Derek. I'm not good with audio software. Should I just hire someone to do it for me? You definitely can. There are people that would be willing to be hired to come and produce or be an editor for any prereq stuff as well. However, it's probably a good idea to try and get your head around it yourself, because then you're more well equipped to deal with it if you are unable to hire anybody to come do it for you, and also you're learning more about your own craft as well, which is always nice.
Absolutely. From Mia, we've got, what can I do to reduce post-production time during recording my shows? So that depends on what exactly is the problem. As I said before, if there's things that you can prevent in the first place, e.g. having the right microphones, that's definitely a good way to go. If you're noticing that the sound quality isn't quite the best, you can record with a processor on your microphone, so EQ, that kind of thing. That'll definitely help sort of smooth out the creases. As for having to cut up, there's not really anything you can do. If you're making mistakes, the only thing that can be done really is to not make them, but that's not really a problem. Do you know what I mean? Just go into your editing software and get those out. But really, you're probably talking about problems with the audio, and there are things that can be done.
Yeah. What is a similar app for Cooled It Pro on Mac? Haven't heard of that one. So a similar... Oh, Cool Edit. Thank you. Thank you for correcting that. Also, thank you for the question. So if it's an editing software, similar programs that you can use would be Audacity, Adobe Audition, Reaper, which we use for MCR Live. There's quite a few editing softwares, and a quick Google should sort you out on that one.
The next question is from Humble and Kyle. What applications and equipment do I need for my radio station? So, just was saying before, it's basic stuff like Book Broadcaster, a USB mic. They're very cheap. They can be bought off eBay, Amazon, whichever your favourite is. In fact, we have one here. Thank you for that. I didn't see what was under my own nose then. That's just ridiculous. So yeah, just one of these. Plug it straight into your computer. Away you go. Play around. Get Audacity, as we said, the cheapest editing software.
Free.
Of course it's free. That's why it's cheap. Yeah, get Audacity. It's free. Play around on that. Make funny noises on it. Do what you want. And it's just, very easy things, very cheap things that you can get to start with your own broadcasts.
Yeah. So the next one we have is from DJ Maverick. And it says, is there an iOS app that can be used to stream our station? Not currently. It is something that we are looking into at the moment, though. If you would like to see this as a feature or something new that we add to Radio.co, you can leave feedback on Radio.co/feedback. We do look at those and we do take on your guys' advice, so please leave any suggestions there.
And then from Sean, we've got, how are you guys getting on setting up your in-house studio platform? The answer to that is everything's in the cloud. For live, we do have Windows Broadcaster. In fact, if you go to Radio.co Broadcaster, you can see all about that there. But we are currently looking into a Mac version as well. Hope that's helped. Yeah. Is that all of the questions?
I think that is all of the ones that we have.
Well, I hope that we helped you with our answers. And if you have any more, just direct them towards our page.
Yeah, if you do have any further questions, you can use our chat on the Radio.co help page, and you can also email help@radio.co or studio@radio.co, and someone will be around to answer your questions. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and that's all we have.